When you're the leader of the Central Intelligence Agency, a group that's responsible for the country's safety and protection, you need to be smart, diligent, able to delegate, and most importantly, level-headed. Avery Bullock doesn't exactly tick all of these boxes, and yet, in American Dad, his position is Deputy Director of the CIA. With the fate of the country in his immature, lustful, jealous, spendthrift, and let's be honest, drug-ridden hands, it's a miracle there's still a USA for Stan to sing good morning to every single day. Not to mention his subdued obsession with catching aliens, specifically Roger, who's evaded him on quite a few occasions. But maybe I'm over-exaggerating. I mean, he can't really be that bad, right? Well, strap yourselves in for this one, folks, and join me as we take a look at Avery Bullock, all Stewart, no Stalwart.
All right, everyone, as the great Humpty once rapped, stop what you're doing, 'cause I'm about to ruin whatever it was that you were doing. Perhaps you could babysit Francine.
That's a great idea. You're adopted, the baby's adopted. You have so much to talk about. Sad stuff.
There's actually not much known about Bullock's life growing up, but the few tidbits we do get help shape a pretty solid picture as to the kind of person he is nowadays. Hell, we just got some major lore about the guy in last season's premiere, Fellow Traveler, which revealed a very familiar-looking man back in 1947 when Roger landed in Roswell.
I'm Agent Avery Bullock. Wait! Sorry. Avery Bullock Sr. I just had a son, and he changed my name on me.
We don't really learn much else about Bullock or his father, but we do see Avery Sr. training Avery Jr. at the end of the episode. However, with his father being the previous deputy director of the OSS turned CIA, and his failure to capture Roger back in 1947, we get an added bit of context as to Bullock's burning need to catch Roger. It's something his dad couldn't manage all those years ago, and now, even if not intentionally written as so, it adds some depth to his obsession. We also learn that while in boarding school, Avery first experimented with his sexuality, something he'd mentioned a few times throughout the show.
You're as tight as the fabric on a reupholstered Davenport.
Not for long, I wasn't. This was the day I started to like playing inside.
Along with a few more admittedly minor pieces of information scattered throughout the series, this is basically it for Bullock's life before the CIA, but we're not exactly done talking about his family life. At the beginning of the series, Bullock had a wife named Miriam. However, as early as the 5th episode of the series, we find out exactly what had happened to her.
Where's your wife this evening?
Handcuffed to a radiator in Fallujah. She wanted to come, but I do not negotiate with terrorists.
This is actually brought up a few times throughout the first few seasons, including in the episode 4 Little Words, where it starts to take a toll on his work and his employees.
Bullock's made us work late every night this week.
Now you know why. Bullock's wife is still being held hostage in Fallujah. Who wants to go home to an empty house?
This reaches a boiling point in the episode One Little Word. After being forced to go out with Bullock to pick up chicks and neglect his wife on several different nights, Stan decides to lead a mission to Fallujah to free Miriam. Obviously, Bullock is elated to see Miriam again, until it's revealed what 3 years in captivity chained to a radiator did to her psyche.
Nothing can change my feelings for her. Miriam!
Die, American infidel!
And even though Bullock abandons her with the Smiths at this point, I know, what a great guy, she does eventually recover mentally and the pair get back together, but this is short-lived. It's later revealed that after ditching Miriam, Bullock fell in love with a woman named Coco, refusing to break it off with her. When Miriam finds out, let's just say she is not too ecstatic.
This is what you were doing while I was a hostage?
I didn't meet her until after you came back.
What?
Oh, no.
Yikes. Well, we don't really see much else of Miriam throughout the show. We're basically just given small tidbits that their relationship never really completely healed from Bullock's whoopsie.
How would you like it if your wife worked here?
Oh, I'd love it. Is there an opening for a woman who bangs every black man she meets in a Red Lobster parking lot?
And in Ricky Spanish, we learn that even though she was kept hostage for 3 months in Fallujah, the real danger might have actually been closer to home.
It was her birthday, and you know how I am when I drink champagne.
And that's about all we've got for his wife, but we're not done talking about his family just yet. Going back to 4 Little Words, a series of unfortunate events leads Francine to India, where she adopts a baby named Sanjeet. Stan comes to take her home, but she refuses to leave Sanjeet behind. So Stan decided to kill 2 birds with 1 stone.
Well, we won't have to worry about that baby anymore.
That's right. Now that you've cleared the brush, we can build a sandbox where Avery Jr. can play safely.
Avery Jr.'s next appearance would also be 1 Little Word, where Francine is basically tasked with taking care of him 24/7 while Stan and Bullock are out trying to get Bullock laid. And Francine does not handle this particularly well.
Look, I don't have time for you right now. I'm busy.
I was here first. I'm the baby. I'm the drunk baby.
Francine also has to take care of Miriam after her brainwashing, and it's AJ who manages to bring Miriam to her senses, basically deprogramming the brainwashing.
That baby is yours. Avery adopted him. That makes you his mother.
I'm a mommy?
This is the last time he's relevant in the show, and in the same episode they use him as a bargaining chip to bring Bullock's lie front and center, but otherwise he's basically completely forgotten about. We don't really ever see him again, and he's very seldom mentioned. They don't even give a solid reasoning behind it, which is pretty sad. Also a little funny, in like a morbid sense.
Shouldn't you be here with your family?
I don't have a family.
What about that Indian baby you have sometimes?
This isn't one of those times.
Whether it was as a kid or in adulthood, Avery's family life has always been screwed up in one way or another, and perhaps that's one of the reasons as to why he's got such an attraction to quote-unquote ideal families.
I have a fetish for family things. I know the word fetish makes it sound sexual, which is good, because it is.
And speaking of which...
Now, if you'll excuse us, these lovely ladies are going to massacre my penis with a wiffle ball bat.
If there's one thing that's consistent about Avery Bullock, it's that his depravity knows no limits. There isn't even one specific thing that he's into. It could be anyone's guess as to what he'll do to himself, do for himself, or do to others to achieve his sick desires.
Every year, Bullock goes overboard with the steroids. We do July 1st and then drop him off in the woods so he can work off his aggression in isolation.
And while this could be completely coincidental, a lot of his depravity seemingly came after the fallout with his wife, so make of that what you will. I genuinely don't even think this dude knows how low he's willing to go. I mean, the man got kicked off of Hedonism 3. What do you have to do to get kicked off of Hedonism 3?
Don't worry, gang. I've been kicked out of better sex resorts than this one. Well, if not better, at least worse.
Do we even want to know what he meant by this? Speaking of, Bullock is actually extremely open-minded in regards to his sex life, for better and unfortunately for worse. He'll bang anyone with a heartbeat, and even then, that's not exactly a firm requirement.
And remember your 4th of July barbecue? I muff-punched your Gram. She was just too senile to know it.
I mean, he'll even bang the very thing he's dedicated himself to capturing and dissecting, even though he wasn't actually aware of it at the time.
We've been on 9 different hinge dates. He always asks for a ride home so he can make a move in the car. What a skis. Good tactic, though. Usually works on me.
And that's not to say that he doesn't have a type. He mentions on a couple occasions that he's really into overweight Asian girls, one of the reasons he was so into Coco.
Her? Really?
I know. She's Asian, she's loose, and she's fat. I hit the trifecta.
Unfortunately, if you think his open-mindedness applies to things outside of sex, you'd be wrong. He sees women as nothing more than objects to conquer. In any other circumstance, he completely zones them out. Bullock is also a fiend for drugs. If there is a drug, he has probably taken it. A real connoisseur, especially when it comes to blow.
I am part of a group of responsible cocaine users. We adhere to strict rules to ensure things don't get out of control. It's a medicine to improve our lives, like penicillin or opium.
And of course, he is not above abusing his CIA credentials to further these addictions.
And a machine that turns water into cocaine. I'll just hang on to this. Charlie, listen to me. Charlie. What's your name again?
One of the worst cases of this abuse of power is in Paranoid Frandroid. In this episode, Francine gets extremely into conspiracy theories after finding out that Stan has been limiting her news intake to only fluff pieces to keep her from the actual horrors of the world. Most, if not all of her theories, she just pulls out of thin air. She does manage to eventually come up with a true theory, though. What is it they say about monkeys and typewriters? Broken clocks? But this theory is one involving the CIA.
Project Toilet Cam has been compromised. We need to eliminate Francine Smith.
Gross, though I guess there is a method to his madness here.
Delete that! I'll do anything you want!
This is why I'm not worried about ISIS.
That's probably as good a segue as any to talk about his role as CIA Deputy Director. Despite everything that we've gone over so far, Bullock is actually shown to take his job very seriously. Almost too seriously, often throwing out any sense of morality in the name of national security. Plus, his never-ending quest to find and capture the alien that evades them is one of his top priorities. But when it comes to every other aspect of running a government service, he is deeply unserious. serious, especially when it comes to government spending.
Oh, the things you can buy with a handful of bills. It makes me excited. It gives me the chills.
And somehow, he has a problem when there's not enough money for the CIA's many other endeavors.
The Democrats have completely cut our torture budget. They're using the money to teach inner-city kids to read.
But his worst sin as deputy director is definitely how he treats his subordinates. In fact, the whole CIA is seemingly a popularity contest hierarchy solely based on Bullock's own opinions. Not to mention, it's relatively common for him to send agents on what are essentially suicide missions, typically for selfish reasons, personal life issues, or, all the drugs and sex.
You and your team will travel to Mecca to film a shot-for-shot remake of the scene in 2001 where the apes fight around the monolith.
It's a running gag at this point that Bullock runs the CIA like a kindergarten class, treating the agents like little kids. And this isn't just a metaphor. Sometimes it feels shockingly literal.
I don't have anything for show and tell. I just found out I have liver cancer.
I'm giving you a 0 for the day.
Though at this point, the agents have mostly accepted and acclimated to this reality.
No, it's not fair! Stan, go to the quiet area. It's not milk time.
Speaking of Stan, this feels like as good a time as any to dive a little deeper into his relationship with Bullock. Hell, let's throw in the entire Smith family to give us a properly thorough look at the many hilarious flaws of Avery Bullock.
You are a complicated man, Smith. I would love to do mushrooms with you.
So far, we've discussed a lot of Bullock's habits, for better and worse, but we haven't really discussed Bullock as a character. What makes him tick? That's partially because most of these moments are in episodes where Bullock is working with, and sometimes against, the Smith family, and his life is shockingly intertwined with theirs. The most obvious connection is the one he has with Stan, boss to subordinate, and it's probably one of the most tumultuous relationships in the entire show. When the pair are seen together, whether that's in a professional environment or outside of the office, how they view each other is basically a coin toss. Sometimes Stan does whatever he can to try and impress his boss.
Is this Agent Duper?
Yes, and he's eating a falafel recreationally. Terrorist.
He's even put his family's well-being at risk to climb Bullock's social ladder. In She Swill Survive, Stan uses Haley's new job as a bartender to learn Avery's secrets, specifically aiming to get that inside track for an invite into his inner circle. This comes at a steep cost, however, as Avery basically forces Haley to drink whenever he's at the bar, something that Stan somehow encourages.
Oh, maybe I should just get a different job.
What? Oh, no, come on now. That's where you're working.
In episodes like these, Bullock sees Stan as nothing more than a tool, basically a pawn who he looks past until he finds some way to use him to get what he wants. For example, in the episode Stan Goes on the Pill, where Stan gender swaps, he catches the eye of Bullock, who, by the way, fully knows this is Stan. After they get close and personal, Stan uses the opportunity to bring up an issue with the break room that he has, something Bullock completely ignores.
The break room fridge.
Oh, I hate the break room fridge. It's always so packed. Someone's got to do something about that.
Are you kidding me?
Bullock is not beating the sexist allegations here. But again, this dynamic can change episode to episode. Sometimes they'll just be hanging out in a boat drinking or at a sporting event together, and other times he'll completely blow Stan off. Bullock's opinion on Stan shifts at the drop of a hat. Sometimes he hates him, and other times they're besties.
I thought after working together all these years, you might like to hang out.
Senor Bullock, no here. Go away or I kill you.
I've been meaning to get rid of my old one.
He promised he'd never take it off. You're supposed to wear them until they fall off. It's in the rules.
There's this running theme of Bullock needing to feel appreciated by his employees as both a boss and a friend, even if he doesn't do anything to deserve that. He gets extremely petty and jealous when Stan ignores him over other people. One time after sending Stan on a spur-of-the-moment mission inspired by Point Break, Bullock gets extremely defensive when Stan enjoys his time there, not because he's blowing off his job at the CIA, but because he's not around to hang out with them.
They're my best friends! Best friends? One, that hurts my feelings. Two, the fact that they are your best friends makes me hate them even more!
That episode, by the way, ends with Bullock trying to blow up Stan's surfing friends. Just thought you should know that. In regards to a professional environment, Bullock is actually the one who has to rein in Stan a lot of the time. Like I mentioned, despite all his flaws, he's still dedicated to getting the job done, and he's not afraid to knock Stan down a notch for his slip-ups.
Good God. You did it, didn't you? You activated your daughter.
Look, sir, I know you're mad, but
deactivate her now!
think the episode that best dives into this complicated relationship is the full cognitive redaction of Avery Bullock by the coward Stan Smith. In it, we see Bullock name Stan as his protege, and the pair really start to hit it off, with Bullock teaching Stan all the tricks of the trade as they bond and become closer friends. But the good times do not last, as internal affairs inform Stan that Bullock is shown to be suffering from early symptoms of dementia, requiring Stan to bring Avery in for complete cognitive redaction, basically turning him into a vegetable.
Whoa, you mean erase his memory? The way you did with Deputy Director Millbrook?
Millbrook is fine. Look at that smiling face.
When Stan informs Bullock of this plan, Bullock completely entrusts him and informs him of an internal affairs controversy to wipe him out, something Stan totally buys into. But soon, we start to see just how outlandish and erratic Bullock has become, and Stan loses faith. It gets so bad that Bullock steals a nuclear sub and has a mental breakdown over a sandwich. So yeah, it takes a lot for Stan to fully grasp the situation.
We start with the Houston Oilers. Sir, listen to what you're saying. The Houston Oilers aren't even a team anymore.
That's what they want you to think!
But instead of taking him back to internal affairs, Stan goes far out of his way to give Bullock the best day of his life before putting a bullet in the back of his head.
Thank you, but I can't go with you to this party. Goodbye, sir.
It turned out this was all an elaborate ruse by the office's most hated employee, Dick, who planted a brain scrambler on Bullock. Stan's bullet actually managed to destroy the scrambler, sparing Bullock's life, and you'd think Avery might be grateful for something like this, right?
He wanted to erase my memory?
Yeah, but don't worry, I wasn't gonna let that happen.
Fool! Your job is to follow CIA protocol.
More evidence that, despite all of his faults, Bullock is dedicated to the job, enough to lay his life on the line for it. And as for his relationship with Stan, well, it's never really clear as to when or how Dick planted that memory scrambler on Bullock, but I would have to assume it must have been sometime after Stan and Bullock started to become buds. So at the very least, some of what they experienced was genuine. Further proof that their relationship is chaotic. But that's not even close to as chaotic as it gets, because Stan isn't the only Smith that Bullock screws with. Enter Haley and exit the word with. Yikes. Back in the early era of the show, Bullock's political agenda was just as, if not more rigid and right-leaning than Stan's. Whereas on the opposite side of the spectrum, you have Haley, easily the most liberal member of the family. The two of them bicker a few times throughout this era, constantly one-upping one another. But with the season 2 premiere, Bullock's to Stan, we see a whole new light to their relationship.
You slept with my daughter?
Well, to be perfectly honest, neither of us did very much sleeping.
Stan is understandably infuriated by this news, but when Bullock dangles a promotion in front of his face, he once again bends to his boss's whims. That is, until Bullock goes one step too far with how he addresses Haley.
How dare you talk to me that way, you third-rate tart?
Sir, she is my daughter.
This is between me and that filthy, cheap slut.
He's really not beating those sexist allegations anytime soon. Yeesh. Bullock and Haley's relationship is a weird one for sure, and after she breaks up with Jeff for being too agreeable, we learn exactly why Haley gets with Bullock.
I know it's crazy, but I like him. He challenges me, and besides, he has a huge
penis. I mean Haley!
But Avery's attraction to Haley is a bit more up in the air. It could be because she also challenges him. Right before this moment, they were hurling insults back and forth, something that Bullock doesn't get much of given his powerful standing. Or maybe it's a taboo thing, given the massive age difference between the two of them at 19 and 70. Technically not illegal, but what I'd refer to as illegal. Maybe it's a combination of both, or some secret third reason, but Bullock is into some weird stuff, so I would guess that the taboo did play a factor.
I love little girls, they make me feel so good. I love little girls, they make me feel so bad.
Despite the extremely rocky end to the relationship and the contempt they still hold for one another due to their ideologies, they seem to be on relatively solid terms, at least enough for them to still have each other's phone numbers saved and to be on a first-name basis.
Avery, it's Haley. I have to talk to you. I was kidnapped.
When you were kidnapped, what were you wearing?
Their relationship is actually brought up a few times throughout the show. The most prominent example would probably have to be in the show's 100th episode, where he and Reginald, a koala who also had a short fling with Haley, don't ask, long story, get into a fight over how Bullock was describing her as a sexual conquest instead of a human being. And I don't mean a verbal fight either. They go full-on fisticuffs with this one. It gets insane.
I apologize to the maids at the Red Roof Inn who had to clean the curtains after I...
You have a mother. And you just said all that.
At the very least, he's a lot more consistent in how he views Haley than Stan. Not sure if that's a good thing or not. As for the rest of the family, it actually boils down pretty similarly, mostly on a gendered basis. He definitely acts more civil around Francine than he would around Haley, possibly due to her marriage status, but the way he treats other women in his life does slip out on occasion.
My leg! You bitch! I'm gonna sue the living crazy chest. How are you?
And while Bullock is probably the least connected to Steve Smith, they too have a chaotic relationship, though most of the time he just sees Steve as Stan's dorky son and doesn't really want him around. But given Bullock's intertangled relationships with the Smiths alongside his, family fetish, you can probably guess how messy these dynamics can get. Though with episodes like Finger Lenting Good, it seems he holds the Smith family in somewhat high regards, as they actually go through with their promise to let him chop off a finger of the first person who breaks Lent.
I hope it's the boy.
Why?
I envy your youth!
Real integrity in his eyes. And that's about all we've got for the very strange intertwined relationships between Bullock and the Smiths. Though, leaving things off here does seem a bit unsatisfying. We've learned a lot about Avery Bullock so far, but it does sort of feel like we're lacking any rhyme or reason for him being the way he is. For the most part, it's just been a chaotic mess. And there might be a good reason that chaotic mess is the best way to describe Bullock.
Hello, I'm Patrick Stewart, theater genius.
For those of you that don't know or haven't picked up on it by now, part of the reason behind Bullock's popularity is his voice actor, Sir Patrick Stewart, aka Captain Jean-Luc Picard himself, though Bullock wouldn't have much to say about that.
Ah, so it works like the holodeck.
The what now?
From Star Trek.
Some of us spent the late 80s and early 90s getting laid, Smith.
Stewart is easily the highest profile recurring guest actor on American Dad, and it's easy to see why he keeps appearing in so many episodes. Out of all of his roles, his two most prolific would have to be the aforementioned Picard from the TNG era of Star Trek and Professor X from the X-Men films, but don't ask Bullock about that one either.
My students are quite fond of me. They call me Professor X.
Because you look exactly like...
Because I'm always trying to sell them ecstasy.
Point is, alongside his time on stage, the man is a thespian at heart. The last thing you'd expect him to take part in is a raunchy animated comedy series, especially with a role as chaotic as Bullock. Stewart is a man who famously took his acting very seriously. Back in the early days of The Next Generation, he thought science fiction was beneath him and was constantly reprimanding other cast members in the show for the way they acted on set. So clearly, pitching him a character like Bullock was a bit of a shot in the dark. But surprise, they managed to hook Stewart in season 1, and they're basically able to get him to say anything they want.
I'm going to this in the tushy. Hand me the anal tarring brush.
In fact, out of every single thing Bullock has ever said on the show, there's only been 2 jokes that Stewart outright refused to say. One in regards to a personal friend of his, and another about Bullock partaking in sexual acts with minors, which, good call, Patrick. But that juxtaposition between what we know of Patrick Stewart and the absolutely depraved nature of Bullock is for sure one of the things that makes this character so popular. And it's not exactly clear how Stewart was cast as Bullock in the first place, or the initial thought behind it, outside of McFarlane being a huge Star Trek dork. But it's clear that he loves playing the role.
Usually, I do my Avery Bullock recording and then get in a taxi and I'm driven to the theater where I do whatever Shakespeare play or Beckett play or David Mamet play I happen to be doing that night. And there are many moments during the evening when I chuckle at the thought of what the audience might say if they knew what I had been doing several hours earlier.
Hell, he even played himself in the episode Blood Crieth Unto Heaven, so he really respects American Dad as a show.
I don't know what we're in for. I'm a little confused whether this is a comedy or a tragedy. A catastrophe in the end would certainly clear things up.
I think it's clear that the writing team saw his love for the character and was more comfortable with getting him to say things that are more and more out there. It's like the character is half written to be a real, tangible character in the series, and half written as an excuse to get Stewart to say some of the most insane stuff ever written for television. And honestly, I'm really happy that that's the way it turned out.
Janet, when's my next appointment?
Not for 2 hours, sir.
Excellent. All day up this ladder, I'm as happy as can be.
Does this sort of mindset somewhat hamper Avery's actual character? Maybe, but I think the writing staff knows that this is part of Bullock's charm and appeal. He's a fun character, but he's also an inside joke to his voice actor. They got one of the most respected dramatic actors of all time to play maybe the most chaotic, lawful character of all time, on a raunchy, adult animated sitcom no less. But maybe we were never supposed to look that deeply into this character. like I just did.
They've assured me that a scene will happen when all those stupid agents are sitting around, and one of them will say, have you noticed the way Deputy Director Bullock talks? It's not like the rest of us. and indeed, I talk like this. I couldn't be more possibly English. So that will be the signal that the series is about to come to an end, I think, when they finally realize that an Englishman is actually running the CIA. It's a good joke, isn't it? Yeah.
Hey folks, hope you enjoyed my first American Dad video. This was actually written by resident American Dad expert Dan the Man Show. If you want more great American Dad content, check out his channel, and of course, stay tuned, we've got more coming up. Peace.
I stay mellow watching Johnny Two Cellos. He talks cartoons, he's a really cool fellow. He keeps you posted on adult cartoons. If that's what you're into, then grab a spoon and a very big bowl of your favorite cereal. Feels like Saturday morning cartoon material. Johnny Two Cellos, watch him on YouTube. Now enjoy this groove and bust a move.